Hello and thanks for joining us for today's video. Just before we start, we want to tell you that we'll be releasing short videos daily. You can watch them here on YouTube, but we'll also be posting them on TikTok and Instagram. Links to both our Instagram account and TikTok account are in the description box. Thank you so much for your time. Without any further delay, here's this week's video. Number 3. John Brisker. John Brisker was born on June 15, 1947 in Detroit, Michigan, a city famed for grit, music, and sports. A formidable athlete with a volatile temper, Brisker cut an imposing figure on the basketball court. He played college ball at the University of Toledo, where his combination of raw athleticism and fearlessness made him a star. Brisker joined the Pittsburgh Pipers in the ABA in 1969 and quickly gained a reputation not just for his scoring ability, but for his violent temper. He once scored 51 points in a game, but also had a legendary on-court fight with Warren Jabali, another notorious tough guy. When the Pittsburgh Condors, formerly the Pipers, folded, Brisker moved to the Seattle Supersonics in the NBA in 1972. He never quite fit in with the more structured league, and his erratic behavior on and off the court soon became a problem. In 1975, the Sonics cut ties with Brisker. That was the last time he played professional basketball. But his story doesn't end there. In fact, it was just beginning to take a dark and bizarre turn. After basketball, Brisker ventured into various businesses. According to some reports, he got involved in importing goods and later tried his hand at international trade. He still dressed sharply and carried himself like a star, but his career had ended in disappointment, and he was allegedly seeking ways to reclaim wealth and respect. By the mid-1970s, Brisker was spending his time with a curious crowd. Some friends claimed he was involved in underground activities. Others said that he started talking about big international deals. The most consistent story was that Brisker was trying to secure business interests in Africa, specifically Uganda. In April 1978, Brisker told his girlfriend and close friends that he was flying to Uganda to explore business opportunities. Uganda at the time was under the brutal rule of dictator Idi Amin, a paranoid and violent man responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands. It was an odd and dangerous choice, one that would be Brisker's last known destination. When 30-year-old John Brisker landed in Uganda, no one knows exactly what happened. According to some sources, he had claimed he was invited by Idi Amin himself. This was plausible. Amin was a sports enthusiast and had a penchant for associating with athletes. Whether Brisker was truly invited or simply showed up expecting a red carpet treatment is still unknown. There are scattered and conflicting reports about what followed. Some claim Brisker was treated like a celebrity and stayed in luxury under Amin's protection. Others suggest that Brisker insulted someone in Amin's inner circle and became involved in disputes over money or power. One chilling rumor says that Brisk, ever the hothead, got into a heated argument with a high-ranking official, possibly even Amin himself. In Amin's Uganda, such defiance could be a death sentence. According to an unverified intelligence source, Brisker was allegedly executed in 1978, possibly as a public display of Amin's dominance or as punishment for a perceived slight. Another story claims he was imprisoned and died in detention. Yet another has him killed in a rebel raid or a civil uprising. The U.S. State Department made inquiries, but the Ugandan regime provided no clear answers. In the chaos of the area, record-keeping was sparse, and many deaths were unaccounted for. After Brisker's disappearance, rumors began to swirl. Some claim to have seen him in Kenya or Zaire. Others believe he had been hiding underground, hiding from debts or criminal charges. A few thought he had been a CIA asset or a mercenary involved in African conflicts. None of these stories were substantiated. His family, including his daughter, refused to give up hope. They held on to the idea that he might return someday. For years they celebrated his birthday, and his mother insisted that he was alive and would come home. In 1985, 7 years after his disappearance, the IRS declared John Brisker legally dead. His body has never been found, and a death certificate has not been issued in Uganda or the US. Nearly 50 years after he vanished, John Brisker remains missing. At the time of this recording, he would be 78 years old. Number 2. Boris Weissfiler. Boris Weissfiler was not the kind of man you expect to vanish in one of the world's most secretive places. Born on April 19, 1941 in Moscow, USSR, to a Jewish family during the chaos of World War II. Weissfiler's early life was marked by hardship, intellect, and quiet resilience. He emigrated to the United States in 1975 from the Soviet Union, part of a wave of Jewish intellectuals seeking freedom from repression and anti-Semitism. By the 1980s, Weissfiler was a respected mathematician at Pennsylvania State University. Described by friends as reserved, brilliant, and introverted, he had a deep love for the wilderness. His escape was hiking, a way to reconnect with nature. In December 1984, during his winter break, Weissfiler decided to explore the rugged beauty of southern Chile near the Andes. He packed light, a tent, hiking gear, and his U.S. passport. What should have been another solitary trek into nature instead marked the beginning of one of Chile's most mysterious and haunting disappearances. Weissfiler's destination was the mountainous region of the Biobío region in southern Chile. He was hiking alone near the border with Argentina, an area known for remote trails, breathtaking vistas, and political shadows. Chile in the 1980s was under the authoritarian rule of General Augusto Pinochet, whose regime was infamous for human rights abuses, secret prisons, and disappearances. On January 4, 1985, Boris Weissfiler failed to check in with his expected contacts. His belongings, including a passport, backpack, and some clothing, were found at a campsite along Rio Las Aces, near a place few foreigners had ever heard of, Colonia de Dignidad. This is no ordinary village. Founded by Paul Schaefer, a former Nazi medic and cult leader, Colonia de Dignidad was a secretive, fortified German enclave nestled in the Chilean countryside. Officially a religious and agricultural community, it was widely rumored to be a paramilitary hub that collaborated with the Chilean secret police, DINA. It was later confirmed that the colony had been the site of torture, forced disappearances, and even child abuse. Colonia Dignidad had been under suspicion for years. It was precisely where Weissfiler had vanished. Chilean authorities at the time quickly declared that Weissfiler had drowned while trying to cross the river. But the circumstances don't add up. His tent had been found properly erected. His passport and money, and even his food, were untouched. There were no signs of an accident. And notably, his body was never found. His sister, Olga Weissfiler, living in the U.S., refused to accept the official narrative. A fierce advocate for her brother, she pressured the U.S. government and international agencies for years to keep investigating. Over time, disturbing evidence began to surface. In 2000, U.S. declassified documents revealed that American intelligence had long suspected Colonia de Dignidad was playing a role in Weissfiler's disappearance. CIA and State Department files include reports that a foreigner matching Weissfiler's description had been detained by Chilean soldiers near the compound. The foreigner was later turned over to civilians believed to be members of Colonia de Dignidad or the Chilean secret police. One intelligence cable explicitly stated, quote, reliable source indicates American hiker may have been captured and mistakenly believed to be a spy, unquote. The Chilean dictatorship had no incentive to speak the truth. During Pinochet's reign, thousands of Chileans were tortured or disappeared. Colonia de Dignidad operated with impunity, protected by its foreign connections, vast resources, and influence over local officials. Paul Schaefer, the leader of the colony, had built underground bunkers, surveillance systems, and prisons within the colony's boundaries. Some former residents later testified that they heard screaming coming from the bowels of the compound during the 1980s. After democracy returned to Chile in 1990, the veil over Colonia de Dignidad began to lift. Schaefer fled in the mid-1990s and was finally arrested in Argentina in 2005. He died in prison in 2010, never fully accounting for his crimes or what happened to Boris Weissfiler. In 2000, the case was officially reopened in Chile after pressure from international human rights groups and the Weissfiler family. A Chilean judge began investigating and found enough evidence to suggest that Weissfiler had been taken alive, possibly tortured or killed, and his death had been covered up by military and civilian actors. In 2012, after nearly 3 decades of silence, the Chilean government acknowledged that Weissfiler had not drowned. In 2016, Chile indicted 8 retired police and military officers for their roles in the case. They were charged with kidnapping and cover-up, though not murder. The charges were based on new testimony and intelligence indicating Weissfiler had been detained, interrogated, and most likely handed over to secretive forces within Colonia de Dignidad. But no one has ever been convicted for his murder, and his body is still missing. Olga Weissfiler, who dedicated much of her life to finding her brother, passed away in 2018. She never learned the full truth. To this day, his body has never been recovered. His name appears on the list of Detenidos Desaparecidos, Chile's thousands of disappeared persons. In 2023, Chile again vowed to intensify searches for missing dictatorship victims. A memorial near the Colonia de Dignidad site bears the names of some people believed to have vanished within or near the borders. Among them is Boris Weissfiler. At the time of this recording, if Boris Weissfiler is still alive, he would be 84 years old. Number 1. Maline McCann. In April 2007, the McCann family, Kate Gregory, both doctors from Leicestershire, England, traveled with their 3 children to the resort town of Praia da Luz in Portugal's Algarve region. They were accompanied by a group of close friends and their children, all staying in apartments at the Ocean Club Resort. It was a warm, idyllic spot for a young family, sunlit beaches, whitewashed buildings, and the sound of the Atlantic. Madeline Beth McCann, the couple's eldest child, was just days shy of her 4th birthday. Blonde hair, bright-eyed and curious, Madeline was excited for the beach, swimming, and ice cream. She shared a room with her younger twin siblings, Sean and Amelia, in apartment 5A, located on the ground floor of the resort. On the evening of May 3, 2007, everything changed. Kate and Jerry McCann, like their friends, adopted a routine while vacationing. Every evening, the adults dined at the tapas restaurant inside the resort complex. It was just 50 meters away from apartment A, close enough to feel within earshot, yet far enough away not to see directly into the flat. The adults took turns checking on their sleeping children every 20 to 30 minutes. On the evening of May 3rd, this routine was followed. Jerry checked in on the children around 9:05 p.m. and found all 3 asleep. Around 9:30 p.m., a friend, Matthew Oldfield, offered to check on the McCann children during his own round of checks. He noticed the bedroom door was open, but didn't look closely at the children. At 10 p.m., Kate McCann went to check herself. She entered the apartment and immediately sensed something was wrong. The bedroom door was ajar, more than usual. The window was open, the shutters were raised. Most terrifying of all, Madeline was gone. Panic set in immediately. Staff and guests began searching. Someone contacted the local police, but crucial minutes and possibly hours were already lost. One of the world's most infamous child disappearances had begun. The initial police response was sluggish and uncoordinated. Praia de Luz was a sleepy town unused to major crime. When officers arrived, the apartment had already been entered by numerous people, family, friends, and resort staff, contaminating potential forensic evidence. Crucial things were not done, like closing the border to Spain. Airports and marine ports were not alerted, and roadblocks were set up too late. A report by Scotland Yard years earlier would criticize the early investigation as chaotic and flawed. Fingerprints were smudged, no clear perimeter was established, and key witness statements were inconsistent or vague. One potentially vital clue emerged early, a sighting. At approximately 10:15 to 9:30 p.m., a friend of the group, Jane Tanner, said she saw a man carrying a child wrapped in a blanket, walking away from the direction of apartment 5A. She said the child had blonde hair and bare feet, a possible match for Madeline. But local police allegedly dismissed the tip at the time. Within 24 hours, the story exploded across Britain and European media. A beautiful, innocent child taken from her bed on holiday, it captured the public's imagination like few cases in history. Madeline's wide-eyed photo was plastered on newspapers, TV, and the internet. The McCanns, deeply devout Catholics, leaned on faith and public attention. They gave press conferences, distributed posters, and launched the Find Madeline campaign, raising millions in donation to fund a private investigation and awareness efforts. The Pope, celebrities, and politicians weighed in. Pope Benedict XVI met the McCanns. David Beckham and J.K. Rowling appealed for help. The campaign became global. But media attention is a double-edged sword. By summer 2007, scrutiny turned to the McCanns themselves. 4 months after Madeline's disappearance, Kate and Jerry McCann were officially named formal suspects by the Portuguese police. They were named suspects after two developments. Cadaver dogs brought in from the UK signaled the scent of a dead body in apartment 5A in the McCann's rental car. DNA evidence allegedly found in the car trunk was said to match Madeline. Portuguese detectives theorized that Madeline had died accidentally and that her parents had covered it up. But forensic analysts later dismissed the DNA as inconclusive. It was a mix of multiple sources, so it was not a reliable match. The cadaver dog evidence, while intriguing, was not legally binding. There was no physical evidence tying the McCanns to a crime and no motive. In 2008, Portuguese prosecutors dropped the McCanns' formal suspect status, citing insufficient evidence. Still, public opinion was divided. Over the years, hundreds of reported sightings emerged: Morocco, Spain, France, Belgium, and even Australia, but none have proved credible. One early suspect was Robert Morat. Morat was a British-Portuguese property consultant who lived with his mother in a villa about 100 yards from apartment 5A where Madeline McCann disappeared. Morat volunteered to help the police as a translator in the early days of the investigation. His overly enthusiastic involvement, combined with media speculation and the fact they lived close by, raised suspicions. On May 14, 2007, just 11 days after Madeline vanished, Portuguese police named him a formal suspect. His home was searched, computers were seized, and his property was thoroughly examined. There was no forensic or physical evidence linking Morat to the disappearance. Much of the suspicion stemmed from circumstantial behavior of media-driven speculation. In July 2008, Portuguese authorities officially cleared Robert Morat of any involvement in the case when they closed the initial investigation due to a lack of evidence. In 2013, during a renewed investigation by British police, Morat cooperated fully and even acted as a witness. He has always maintained his innocence. Morat later won €600,000 in liable damages from several British newspapers that falsely implied he was involved in Maline's disappearance. His reputation was deeply affected, and he described the experience as a nightmare. Another suspect was Robert Hewlett. Hewlett was a 61-year-old British man traveling in a camper van in the Algarve area where the McCanns were staying. Hewlett was a convicted pedophile and rapist with a history of sexually abusing young girls across the UK and Europe. His criminal record dates back to the 1970s. When the police found out he was in the area at the time of the abduction, they questioned him. However, they never found any evidence that connected him to Maline's disappearance. Friends have alleged that he knew what happened to Maline, but refused to talk to the police unless he was granted immunity. Raymond Hewlett died of cancer in Germany in 2010 and is still considered a suspect in the disappearance. The case faded, then re-emerged periodically, usually tied to new media interests or appeals. In 2011, the British government ordered Operation Grange, a fresh Metropolitan Police review of the case. Dozens of officers re-examined timelines, re-interviewed witnesses, and identified inconsistencies in the original investigation. In June 2020, German prosecutors stunned the world. They announced that they had a new suspect, Christian Brookner. Brookner, a convicted German sex offender, was under investigation for Maline's presumed murder. Brookner lived in the Algarve when the disappearance happened. He drove a distinctive VW camper van and had a long history of violent sexual crimes against women and children. Phone records placed him near Praia de Luz around the time Maline disappeared. Prosecutors publicly declared that they had concrete evidence that Maline was dead and Brookner was responsible. However, they refused to reveal the evidence, citing the integrity of the investigation. Brookner denied involvement. Christian Brookner has not been formally charged with their murder. He remains in prison on unrelated charges. Despite years of investigation, millions of euros in funding, and global media coverage, Maline McCann remains officially missing. Every few years, a new tip surfaces. In 2023, British police conducted fresh digs at a reservoir near Silveiras, Portugal, allegedly based on a tip related to Brookner. But nothing conclusive was found. Kate and Jerry McCann continue to campaign quietly. They've stopped granting most interviews, but maintain hope. Netflix released an 8-part docuseries in March 2019. The McCann family opposed the production and refused to take part in it. In May 2024, on what would have been Maline's 21st birthday, they released a statement, quote, "Maline is still missing. We continue to search. We will never give up hope, no matter how much time passes," unquote. The disappearance of Maline McCann remains one of the most high-profile unsolved cases in modern history. It combines parental anguish, media spectacles, investigative failures, and the dark possibilities of criminal exploitation. What really happened in apartment 5A that night? Was Maline abducted by a stranger? Did she wake up and wander into the night? Or was something more complex at play? At the time of this recording, if Maline McCann is still alive, she would be 22 years old. Her case remains officially unsolved. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Also, don't forget to watch our shorts on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Once again, thank you for watching.